This is the Get Better Everyday podcast with Matt Gouget. Actionable advice from real-life superheroes who, just like you, are in relentless pursuit of the best version of themselves. Whether you're just getting started or have been at it for years, my hope is that this podcast injects you with some positive energy to continue doing what brings you joy. Join me as I interview the best of the best in business, sports, and life. Let's grow together.
All right, Matt Gouget, Get Better Everyday podcast. Super excited to have a good buddy of mine, Steve Buzzard, on the pod. Let's just get started with who is Steve Buzzard?
Wow, where do we start?
We're doing it.
We're doing it. Well, hey, definitely born in Virginia. Dad was a military guy. So we ended up coming out to California. I think we started somewhere in Marysville, but eventually worked our way down to Sacramento. Grew up here, went to AM Wynn, which is over in Lincoln Village off Bradshaw. Moved to St. John Vianney. From there, went to Christian Brothers High School, and then moved on to USC, where I acquired a lot of student debt on loans, but it was worth it. And I have been able to solidify myself here as a broadcaster, as a teacher, as an entrepreneur. So I tell you what, it's been a great life, and I love Sacramento. You can see by my shirt, yep, Sacramento versus everybody. Love everything about it in the 916.
I love it, man. And as a Sacramento legend, a lot of folks in Sacramento know Steve Buzzard. They know Buzzard Ball. They know Experience the Buzz, all the cool stuff that you got going. My hope is this reaches a worldwide audience in the vein of Get Better Every Day. I love folks that are getting better every day, but with that, they're empowering and impacting others.
Yeah.
My feeling is that one of the reasons I love you as a human being, you're impacting kids. You're impacting kids at scale to get better every day. So tell us a little bit about the origin story. I don't truly know all of it, right? So like the origin story of Buzzard Ball, how that's evolved, because it's, 3 decades, I think, in the making, and maybe we'll even talk about your plans for the future.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so let's talk about that aspect. It's the youth basketball component of what I do, and I've been doing it for 27 years. That's the summer camp. We're getting ready to open up our 17th season of the Winter League. So it's kind of got two bodies of spirit of basketball going on. And the beautiful thing is, I will tell you, for everything that I've been able to do as an entrepreneur, I do want to give credit where credit is due. And that is the school that I taught at for 26 years, St. Michael's, because that's where everything started for me. So when we take the youth basketball component of it, it was just basically a program that we wanted to put together in my first year there to say, hey, let's just have something we can offer the kids and maybe some of the neighborhood kids. Well, literally, I think of the first year, which was either 1994 or 95, I always forget, but it's one of those years. We literally had 20 kids, and I think half the kids were my 2 kids and my nieces and nephews, right? We had to get people in there to make it happen. And interestingly enough, a few years into it, the school decided to go under major reconstruction. So loving what I was doing, I was like, you know what? I proposed, if I could take this somewhere else, could I just take the basketball camp and do my thing? And I was given that blessing by Father Jesse Vaughn, and I give him credit to this day. So I took it over to a place called Arden Church of the Nazarene on Arden Way by Dairy Queen, and we had it there for many years, and that's where we grew it. We just grew it really big, and really we started to form what I believe is a very unique basketball experience. In fact, and we'll talk a little bit later on about this, you're talking about things coming up, I'm actually working with someone to put together a course so that I can give others the blueprint for how to do a summer camp and how to do a winter league. So I'm very excited about that. But that summer camp was at Arden Church of the Nazarene, and we just built it based around fun. And to me, it's about moments. It's about the experience. Your boys have been coming, and they are great. They're just great kids to be there, and they really, truly represent the blueprint of what Buzzard Ball is all about. I am all about giving moments because I think back to my childhood, and I go through the list, and you could do the same, Matt. What were the things that were the highlights for you in your athletic career? And I'm like, you know what? We can do that. We can provide that. Even if the kid is either a great basketball player, somewhere in the middle, or just a beginner. Take kids that maybe get their very first basket. We make that a big deal. So everything is surrounded by fun and those moments and the experiences. And then what eventually happened was Well, truth be told, we allowed Gatorade back in the day. You know, you kind of learn along the way. It was a carpeted gym. So we had a lot of spilled Gatorades, and the janitor there was not very happy with me at Arden Church of the Nazarene. So I think he went to the higher ups and said, you know what, let's ramp up his rent. And when they ramped it up, I said, you know what, let's see if I can take it back to St. Michael's. So I took it back to St. Michael's, and we have been there for a majority of the years. And then because of the pandemic and things happening there, we actually moved over to our current home that we are very happy with, Sport Course Fitness here in Sacramento. So it's been a true blessing. And you're right, I love being a part of kids' lives. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, to that point too, like you talk about childhood memories. Like this is something that, as you were saying that, I felt inside of me. I drove to my dad's house the other day. My dad's been in the same house since 1981, the house I grew up in. 2 doors down from that is a basketball hoop. And it was a neighbor's basketball hoop. It's nothing fancy, but I can tell you that I remember dribbling, turning, fading away, 3, 2, 1, and I'm trying to make the winning shot, right? And like, I've seen and experienced the Buzzard Ball summer camp. So I know that like moments like that are being made, and it's, you know, even cooler than me by myself doing a fadeaway. Sometimes my cousin would come and play with me, but for the most part, it's just me, 3, 2, 1, and you know, I make the winning shot. I'm envisioning it in my mind, like making those moments for kids that are, you know, lifelong memories. Is something that's really special. I would love to dig out of you like your why, because I know there's got to be something, you know, besides like lasting memories. You know, there's something to youth sports. There's something to, you know, empowering kids to believe in themselves. What is your why with continuing to run these, continuing to impact and empower kiddos?
I'm going to give all the credit to the man upstairs. And I'm sorry if that sounds cliche. It is the absolute truth, because coming out of college, my goal and my aspiration was to be a broadcaster, to be a play-by-play broadcaster. And I pursued that, and I was very lucky. I started out in Porterville under the direction of Monty Moore, who was the old radio voice for the Oakland A's. He had a station in Porterville called KTIP. I came on as the news director, and I didn't like it. I didn't last long, but I knew it was something I had to do. Eventually was able to come back to Sacramento, work for a station called 1240 KSAC. They were on the map before Sports 1140 KSHK came on board. Tim Roy, who is the longtime voice of the Golden State Warriors, worked for the Kings, asked me to come over, do some highlights, and so I got into that. So my whole pursuit was I wanted to be a play-by-play announcer. And that was not happening. Gary Gerald, Grant Napier, they never went anywhere. And I did get one offer along the way, and that was from the Minnesota Lynx. But it was only for the Minnesota Lynx. So I had made the proposal, hey, I will come on board as the voice of the Lynx, but can I work for the Minnesota Timberwolves as well? At this time, I had my 2 boys, Toph and Max, and Riley, our daughter, had not come along the way yet. And I remember we were making a trip down to Disneyland and getting the call. And it was like, Steve, we want you. And just in that moment, I was so excited that someone actually wanted me to be their play-by-play voice. But with a family, you've got to make bigger decisions. Now, I should say, at this time, I was just starting to teach at St. Michael's. And that happened because when I was at 1240 KSAC, we had the general manager come in and he said this, does anybody speak Spanish? And we kind of looked at each other like, what's he talking about? And I'm thinking in my mind, well, I took 8 years of Spanish in high school and college, but I can't hold a conversation. Well, the long and short of it was that they were going from all sports to all Spanish. Okay, so as I'm making these transitions, I'm teaching, not realizing that God is telling me directly, Steve, this is going to be the direction that you go. Because I had told myself in teaching, I was going to give myself 3 to 5 years, hopefully get that big job, never got it. And then when I made the transition out of working for the Sacramento Kings, I believe that was in 2004. So that puts me about 9 years into teaching. That's when I knew full steam ahead, all about teaching, and I loved every aspect of it already. So what it was doing, I feel like it was forming me for what was coming next in my life. And that was going full force with stuff like Buzzard Ball and teaching and being able just to be a part of kids' lives. So there's nothing better than providing moments for kids' lives. I really believe in that.
Yeah, I love it. I got a passion for kiddos, and you know, whether it's my own or whether it's coaching a basketball team or coaching a baseball team, like seeing that magic
Yep.
and the pure joy in kids through sports, the lessons that they learn. And I think too that, somebody who's passionate about sports and loves sports, it's not just about hitting home runs or making a 3-point basket. Kids are learning hard work. They're learning teamwork. They're learning all kinds of life lessons. They just happen to be doing it through a vehicle sports that is really enjoyable and fun to watch. So on behalf of tens of thousands of parents whose kids you've impacted, I just want to say thank you to the universe for the direction that Steve Buzzard took for Buzzard Ball, because, my boys have enjoyed it a ton. And I know that thousands of other kids, I think, was it last year's Winter League that got over 1,000 kids registered?
Yes, so we had over 1,000 registered last year. We had 93 teams. This year for summer camp, we ended up with 911 campers. We decided to do 10 weeks. And the funny thing out of that is Buzzard Ball was kind of made to be a morning basketball camp. That's when I believe you get the kids at their best. And I remember, because of money situations in the early days, it's like, okay, how far can we push this, right? So there were times when we did doubles, which would mean we would do morning and afternoon. But I remember the energy in the afternoon was not the same in the morning, right? So I had always told myself, I will never do doubles. And I think I did that after year 10. I said, no doubles. Then the pandemic hits. And what was interesting out of the pandemic, and we all know this, we all had a chance to pause, right? To think personally, professionally, how are we going to be looking going forward? Well, coming out of that, I realized families were wanting some sort of activity. And I just told myself, listen, we're going to go for it. I'm going to flip the switch and we're going to do doubles. So 2 years ago, we did 8 weeks of morning and afternoon. Huge success. And remember, we were still coming out of the pandemic. So we were still working with some things with people being, if they were sick and, all the things that you had to do. So there was a little bit more extra work to do. This summer, though, we decided on 10 weeks. We went for it full board and it was awesome. I mean, we had the average of like 40, 50 kids per week. So there were no complaints. And now we're already looking toward next year like, hey, we got to repeat this, because as long as the families want it, then we want to deliver that product.
Yeah. And I agree that people were hungry. They wanted to get out. We, the Little League that I'm a part of, we had increased numbers. Buzzard Ball had increased numbers. I think that to a certain extent, we could even map kids being in youth sports to mental health, right?
Absolutely.
During the pandemic, that was a popular topic, and some people, shy away from talking about mental health. But I had numerous conversations where, you'd rope in a counselor, and my kid is struggling. He's locked indoors. He's not going to school. He's not socializing with his friends. He's not playing sports anymore. And so getting kids outdoors playing sports, or in a gym playing sports, socializing with friends, being empowered through team sports is something that's very important. Do you have anything to add, I guess, in regards to the mental health aspect of it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you kind of said it. You've got to give them an outlet, but not only an outlet, but a positive outlet. And so with the Winter Basketball League, very similar. We kind of bridge, right? So the camp is a camp, the league is a league, but they bridge together because it's what you said earlier. This is all built on life skills. That's all we're teaching. Again, your skill level doesn't matter. That's why I love calls I get, and they say, well, what kind of basketball league are you? And I embrace the fact, and it took me a few years to do this, but I said, listen, we are a rec basketball league, and we have people all over the map. And with the Winter League, what I try to do there is I want that to be the kids' NBA experience, okay? I'm going to tell you, nobody in the thousands of kids that have come through in the 17 years I've done the league have made the NBA. Now, if that happens, guess what? That will be fantastic, but that's not what we're here for. Isn't it funny that all of these programs are so built towards getting the kid to the next level, but yet we're ignoring the other 90% of the kids who just want to have a good time and be able to play sports? Yeah, I know. I understated it. It is a higher number. So embracing that and saying that's our niche, I'm surprised more people don't do it, because if you embrace the fact that you are a rec program, I think a lot more of these programs would have more success.
Right. Yeah. And just to touch on that too, like the cool NBA experience where true NBA experience, as in playing on an
Yep.
NBA floor at the Golden One Center where the Sacramento Kings play. My kiddos got to take part in that and actually play on that floor. So kudos to you for the awesome program. Tell us a little bit too about, because I know Buzzard Ball is a part of like the whole Buzzard umbrella, right? So tell me other projects and other stuff you have working on. We can shout out the Experience the Bud podcast and other stuff you got going on.
Of course. So yeah, the other aspect too, and realize I've been doing all this as I was teaching. So I retired 2 years ago. And the beauty of that story is that I was able to pass the torch to my oldest son, Toph, who took the exact same position. So, while that decision I know was a good one for me and was necessary at the time, I knew I was still going to be involved in kids' lives. I think that was the only thing that I said, okay, is that going to be weird for me where I'm not going to be teaching on a daily? I will say, I love retirement, boom. But for me, it's not retirement, it's a shift. So I've been actually a DJ for 20 years and also an auctioneer. And you notice that with all these things, the true passion I had with broadcasting, I've brought into every single one of these things that I do. So I'm very fortunate there. So I do a lot of weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, parties, school functions. I love being in the community and just being a part of kind of like all the things that go on here in Sacramento. Auctioneering, that just brings back the play-by-play process. Kind of my talent there and stuff. And then the podcast, so Experience the Buzz, that came out of the pandemic. That was me saying, how can I get back into my first passion, which was broadcasting? And I came up with this idea. My wife came up with the name, Experience the Buzz, so I love that. And then it was just basically highlighting Sacramento entrepreneurs, small business owners, and personalities. And of course, you've been a part of that. I believe you're episode 28. I think so. Everyone check that out. But really, I love highlighting people like you, Matt, that just essentially just sharing your journey, because we all have a journey. And so when I book guests, I don't say no to people. I'm like, yeah, your journey is probably going to be a great story to tell, and it's going to touch with someone. So I want to throw the kudos back to you as well, because it's been pretty amazing what you have done with your company and the YouTube channel. And then boom, I see that you have a podcast. And so I checked that out and I'm like, man, Matt, this is great. So it's good that you, like me, we're wearing a lot of hats, but we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Right. Yeah. And the more I hear you talk about DJing and auctioneering and play-by-play, and I think about how you might not be a play-by-play announcer for an NBA team, but I've seen you in action with the kiddos, and these kids with an NBA experience are, oh, Joey Dorman passes it to Ryan Boucher. Like these kids are getting the NBA experience. I think you are a bringer of joy to everybody who gets to interact with you. I thank you so much for this. I thank you so much for the thousands of kids that you've had the impact on, and I'm absolutely positive that you get every single year kids that come back to you that were with you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that you've impacted their lives in a positive way. I hope to do some of the same with people that I come in contact with, and that's part of me getting better every day with people and just impact. So thanks so much for joining. Anything else you want to shout out before we cap this thing?
Well, it's interesting because I look at it as a full circle thing. I think one of the most amazing things that's been happening recently, I think it's kind of twofold. With the camp, when I get that second, and I think I have a couple where it's the third generation that are coming to the camp. So that one is really, wow, it's really interesting and mind-blowing for me. And then lately, I've been doing weddings of kids that are reaching out to me and saying, hey, I did Buzzard Ball. You hosted my birthday party. You used to do our middle school dances. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, the fact that you still would trust me to reach out to me to be your wedding DJ, to me, that's an honor. And so that's how I look at everything. It's like everything is an honor that we get to do stuff that we love, right? Do what you love. You don't just want to make it a job. So for everyone out there, you can check me out. Buzzardball.com, I think, is the best place to go, because that truly is the umbrella for everything that I do that we've talked about in this episode. So I do appreciate the time, Matt.
Sweet. Yeah. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you, Steve. I look forward to seeing, all the stuff you got planned in the future, because I know you're retired, but you're still in action. You're still play-by-play. You're still providing that cool experience. Thanks again, Steve.
All right. Thank you, Matt.